In 1965, a young American minister stood on a bridge in Selma, Alabama. In front of him were armed police officers. He knew they will attack him. He knew he could turn back and be safe. But he stood firm. Welcome to the Sebcast, where we turn our beloved stories on their heads, look at what history might have overlooked, discover anew, and grow together in John 13, 1-5. His name is John Lewis, and he believed in something the world considers foolish, non-violent peace. He believed that love is stronger than hate, and he was willing to suffer for that belief. He is not the first to live like this. There was someone else, a man who also stood firm when he could have walked away, a man who also chose love when violence was easier. Jesus. And the question is, how does one find the strength to live like this? Let's return to the night in Jerusalem before Jesus' crucifixion. His disciples surrounded him. He knew what lay ahead. He knew Judas was about to betray him. He knew Peter would deny him. He knew all his disciples would flee. And what did he do? He took a basin. He kneeled. He began to wash their feet. John 13:12-14 said, "Do you understand what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for I am that. If I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet." It's not just a symbolic act, it's a demonstration of something deeply radical. Jesus said, "This is how you change the world. This is how you become strong. This is how you overcome." Not through power, not through status, but through servanthood. The problem? We don't want to live like this because it sounds impossible, naive, and unrealistic. And yet, some people do it, and they change the world. Our society tells us that power means winning, having control, not letting people walk over you. But Jesus came and said something different. Do you want to be first? Become the last. Do you want to be great? Become the least. Do you want to overcome? Give yourself away. It's a radical reversal of how we see the world, but here's the thing, it works. Think of people like Mother Teresa. She dedicated her life to the poor, the dying, and the outcasts. She owned nothing. Yet decades after her death, people remember her as one of the most influential figures of our time. Think of Martin Luther King Jr., who fought for civil rights without raising a fist. He forgave when he was hated, and his influence lives on. What drives people to live like this? What drove a man like Jesus to lay down his life for others? The answer is one word: love. John 15:13 says, "No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." It's easy to say you love, but real love, it requires sacrifice. It requires servanthood. It requires washing others' feet even if they don't deserve it. Jesus did it. He washed your feet long before you chose him. He died for you, even when you didn't understand what it meant. He forgave you, even before you made an apology. And do you really understand what he has done for you? Then it changes how you live. You begin to see people differently. You start to think differently about power. You begin to act differently in your relationships because you realize love is not a feeling. It's an action. It's a way of being. Think about this scenario. You have a conflict with someone. You feel hurt. You feel betrayed. The world tells you, hold on to that anger. Show your strength. Make sure you win. But Jesus says, let go, forgive, serve. And here's the strange thing. You discover a freedom you never expected when you do it. You are free to love without expecting anything in return. You are free to serve without seeking status. You are free to forgive because you are forgiven. And this is the gospel. You are not just here to survive. You are here to show what Jesus looks like by living like Him. And it brings us to the most crucial question of all. Let's be honest, it's hard to live like this. It goes against everything we've been taught, makes us vulnerable, and seems to make no sense. But then you look at Jesus and see how He kneeled, served, and gave. And you realize it's not a weakness. It's the greatest strength there is. The world tells you, take. Jesus says, give. The world says, defend yourself. Jesus says, wash feet. The world says, be powerful. Jesus says, become the least. And if you really understand it, if you really grasp what Jesus has done for you, then there's only one question left to ask. Whose feet will you wash today? We are being sent in love. Until next week, take care.